What's up, Those Boys fans? You know, I was thinking recently, it would really help out us to feel more confident to keep doing this if you subscribed, shared this, send it to all your friends, family members, a lover, maybe a secret lover. Send it to them. Subscribe. Subscribe.
Those Boys fans, please just hit the button and subscribe to us. And hit the subscribe button, and then you'll be subscribed.
Yeah, and you know what?
Maybe call your mother.
I was thinking that.
Yeah.
If you commented on it, something that you liked about this, that'd also be really helpful.
Yeah, it might help the algorithm. Sometimes we finish each other's sentences.
That's because we are
brothers.
Yeah. And we're one of those boys. 3, 2, 1. Subscribe. Yeah. Not bad. Hi, everybody. My name is Nathan.
What's up? I'm Zach.
And welcome to episode 23 of Those Boys.
Episode 23.
We have a little bit of a surprise for the first time ever. Well, actually, we have to be honest. This is now the second take of episode 23 tonight because of a handful of technological issues that happened.
But we did record the entire episode.
And it was very vulnerable.
Very vulnerable, very real. Great episode. But
it was like, if you want to look at it this way, it was dress rehearsal.
Okay.
Remember when, did you do plays or theater ever? It's like you did full performances over and over and over and over, and then you would do it for performance. So that's how we're taking it. We had our pre-run, but we have an exciting thing today going on in the studio.
In the studio, we have a surprise.
And the surprise is actually, we're going to tell you about the surprise right now. Our graphic designer is in-house building our website as we speak. Chantelle Bogue. Ladies and gentlemen, round of applause.
Round of applause. Keep it going. Keep it going.
Yeah, we're going to keep this one going because when I went inside to go talk to my fiance about the troubles we were experiencing, which were crippling anxiety that we couldn't pray about.
The troubles, which, just to be honest, crippling panic, anxiety.
She said it seems like the only reason why y'all are doing this second time is because Chantelle. I was like, yeah, me and Zach, whenever we've had episodes with the cast, we've looked at each other and been in so much distraught and been like, we're done.
Yeah.
I'll see you tomorrow.
Yeah, we'll do it again tomorrow.
And so Chantelle comes back into the garage or the podcast studio and she goes, okay, guys, I'm ready for round 2.
No, she says, all right, I got a blanket. I peed. I'm ready for round 2. Yeah. It's like, oh, well, with that kind of attitude, maybe we could do it again.
You ever get so angry about having support? This is what they mean by having a team.
Yeah, it's true.
So big shout out to Chantelle.
Big thank you for being here,
because
Chantelle.
Honestly, Zach and I are just getting better at this whole experience has been a perfect example of how not to react when you're just feeling like you want to blame or have all of those feelings. And so working on that's a big thing for you and me, just to not react and then to continue going. As Chantelle says, welcome to the influencer life. Buckle. I'm not ready for this life.
We had a similar thing happen with episode 8 when we first moved out here. One of the cameras wasn't recording, and we had to re-record the entire episode like we're doing right now. But that episode, when it was done, we were just like, guess we're going to do 2 next weekend. Then we're not doing it again now.
Yeah, I know. And we pull through. I think that's what we've talked a lot about is. We've had a lot of experience doing projects where things have failed and then we just didn't do them anymore. Yeah. And so, but Blouse is a good example, really, if you think about everything attacking that. You're not supposed to do it anymore. Don't be DJs. Yeah. Don't be DJs anymore. It's probably not healthy. It's we are going to be DJs until the last moment. So
we got to the last moment.
We really do push pretty hard. And, but big shout out to Chantelle for being here and working on our website. I can see it from here. And it's just beautiful looking.
Yeah, it looks amazing.
We actually have colors now.
Yeah, man.
Which I was going to order us some Letterman jackets, like those boys Letterman jackets, and now actually having colors. We can choose some colors.
Oh, yeah, totally.
I want one, you're going to get one now.
Yeah, part of the team.
Yeah. You have money? Because those boys aren't making money yet.
You got money?
You got cash. You too can get one if you're watching. No, absolutely. I would love to buy more than just Zach.
Dude, that's
things.
A great idea for merch. Is instead of us just having Letterman jackets or people part of the team, people can buy them off the website.
I thought you were about to be like, another great thing for merch would be just to tell our fans to buy their own merch.
Buy your own.
Go buy things and put those boys, like take a Sharpie and put those boys on it. Make merch for us.
There it is.
One of the newest things we've come up with is self-made merch.
Self-made.
Go buy a white
100%.
t-shirt from, I don't know, Target,
We
Walmart.
sell the Sharpies.
Those boys Sharpies.
Yes.
Well,
okay.
Let's get into it.
Yeah.
So Zach and I, over the last week, over the last 2 episodes, I'm editing them. Zach's doing all the shorts over them. We are constantly rewatching ourselves, which has its positives and negatives. But mostly, one of the things that I've noticed is I'm able to like really self-reflect on a regular basis editing these casts. And the last 2 episodes have been rather difficult for me, mainly just because I'm able to like see the micro issues that I might see in myself. And it makes me feel like anxious and super insecure. And one of the things I've been noticing is being pretty fired up when we hit record, being present, and then you'll say something and I'll have a thought. And it's a combination of feeling like activated by what you're saying, but just not listening and like engaging in your part. And even if like viewers can't see that or whatever, or like listeners can't really notice that, like for me, it's like very noticeable of how I want to be better at listening and like having an active conversation and giving not only you the space to say things, but also me to receive like what you're saying personally and reflect on it. And so with that, that's just like something I've noticed when we don't have like a structure or a real set plan, we kind of just improv. There's a lot more of that possibility, like fire brain syndrome. Yeah. And so you and I have just been talking about how we can set more of a, maybe a 5-part series or goal where we have like umbrella ideas, that maybe anybody else from different religions or any other ways could really relate to these topics. And so starting this
5-part series,
we're going to be talking about prayer. And there's so many things about prayer, the power of prayer. One thing I've noticed is just, I don't know. Actually, I don't even know how to jump into this.
Well, let me ask you this. Do you still pray?
It's funny because
we just did this.
We did just do this, but that is what I was just about to ask you.
Yeah. You wanted to flip it, huh?
I was going to try to beat you to the punch. I was like, why don't we switch it up? Which I think we should switch it up is, I was talking with Megan about this today. I think you could ask anybody that question, right? And so like when it comes to this umbrella topic of prayer, we have a lot of experience being pastors' kids, being raised by a pastor, worship leaders, like prayer sessions, camps. There's a lot of avenues. And I think like there's a lot of things we could talk about in history and other religions, but like trying to keep it as personal to our own like history with this is like prayer and trauma. And so my question to you is, do you still pray?
I don't, as much as I did in the past, at least. The times I do pray, it's not the same as prayer, but prayer for me is like very OCD. When I was a kid, I would like hyper fixate on guilt and the things I'd done wrong. And I'd pray and ask God for forgiveness all the time. And so I just have a lot of trauma with prayer specifically. And even when I see other people pray, I get a little anxious because just from our upbringing and everything, prayer is just tough for me. It triggers me. But now I have turned more towards like mantras as my form of prayer and like looking inward to yourself instead of actually just praying and asking for an entity to help you, more like asking yourself to help you. Looking more inward. And so like prayer has become a lot more personalized for me coming out of Christianity and finding it for myself, finding this life for myself has been more just personal.
As like an identity. Interesting.
Definitely. Do you still pray?
I mean, I do.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I mean, the times that I do pray, I think defining prayer is kind of hard. So like being specific to, I know how you were raised. I know that your trauma is different than mine. So that's interesting, right? Like, but we have a very familiar understanding of what prayer looks like in our experience. And so like for me, I tried to think of what prayer was like as a kid. And like, do I remember not praying growing up? Like I don't have a life not praying.
Yeah.
And then, but I do have a life of trying to learn how to stop praying and to have more of like an inner dialogue that isn't prayer based, or an inner voice, if you will. And so like sometimes it's like nearly impossible for me to not have that like same familiar prayer voice. So in my experience, it's like prayer and that inner voice were so the same.
Almost like you've exercised that muscle so much that it's almost impossible not to exercise that muscle.
Yeah. And I mean, or if I'm just being honest, like if I'm having a lot of anxiety, or like, you know, and anything, like if it's really bad and I can't get rid of it, there's like this thought, like I know, like, hey, if I just pray and I ask God to get rid of this pain, I know it's going to help a little bit. And it's like this, like I almost know that there's such a familiarity, such a familiar tract, even though if I don't necessarily believe it's mysticism and it's magic anymore, like I used to as a kid or whatever, like there's still the walls of that familiarity that are safe. It's like, no, I know that like I can pray and I feel better, because as a kid, it was like, God, I don't feel great. So if your will be done, then your will be done. And I would feel just instantly better.
Yeah.
It's kind of like having like, oh my God, I don't feel good. I'm where's my dad? Where's my mom? You go find your mom and you feel better.
Yeah.
It's like the same prayer to me as a kid was that. It was like comforting.
Do you remember we had a youth pastor? I want to say he was a youth pastor, but he used to pray and call, instead of saying like Jesus, he'd call him daddy. What? Do you remember this? I'm not going to throw his name out there.
Their name. I kind of barely. I mean, I like had
daddy,
history.
Daddy, we come before you today.
Kind of. What about it though?
It's just because I was reflecting on the idea of this other being
like
in control.
The father figure.
Yeah, so it's like he represented like daddy. Daddy, help me. Daddy.
It's just like so hard for me to take it seriously, knowing how much you've joked about the term daddy, dude. It's like you of all people being like asking me that. I'm like, are you joking right now? Because all I'm thinking about is you being like,
daddy's here, daddy's hungry.
Like, dear daddy, we come before you. Like, daddy. You know, I know some people that think of God as a zaddy. God's a zaddy. Dear zaddy. Yeah, I think that like all jokes aside, that is how I can relate with prayer still, is that it's like for me, there has been this connection to coping with prayer since I was a child. That's just been a fact with like, it's an anxiolytic. So breaking free from the church and leaving the Christian faith, I like started to do that at like 15, 16. Prayer was something I continued to do for years after.
Yeah. Oh yeah, me too.
And I would start to feel guilty. And so like when I'm trying to understand this thing, like
feel guilty for praying. Yeah.
Or just like upset at myself, angry, like I'm better than this. No, like it's not real, man. What are you doing? And that trauma is connected to the religious trauma. And I think that like, but prayer isn't just a Christian thing. Prayer isn't just a Nathan thing. It's not just like our family. It's
a worldwide
So
thing,
you can ask people, if you ask anybody, hey, do you pray? Some people might be like, no.
Yeah.
Someone would be like, every day, all day. I never not pray.
Yeah.
And we were raised to like, prayer was kind of like walking and talking with God. Like you're talking with God. So you can pray all the time. So I remember for me growing up, prayer was all the time. My inner voice was the prayer voice. 15, 16. And I'm like, I'm not a Christian anymore. And I started to like, not even really understand, but I broke free, knew there was something more. And prayer was still the source of like access to myself.
I feel like you hit the nail on the head there, that your inner voice was your prayer voice, because it really is. Praying is your inner voice talking to yourself all the time. We were raised to believe that was prayer. You're always praying in your head. At least I was. And so when you break free of the religion, your inner voice is still kind of praying, and you have to like relearn what an inner voice, like you have to learn your inner voice, because the whole time it's been prayer, it felt like.
Yeah. And so that building that inner voice could be like building an identity.
Oh, I think it just comes with coming out of the religion and learning who you are.
and which is, I think, like identity forming,
sure.
right?
Yeah.
And so for me, it's like, do I still pray? I mean, I've kind of gone through when I was like 15, 16, and I was getting out of the church and was like, kind of went through a phase of just being like, not only against the church, but I was like angry. So it was like I would like have angry prayers still. It was just like, I remember being so young and being like angry at God that like he wasn't real. You know, I'd be like, God, man, like, why aren't you real, bro?
Yeah.
And so like, it was just like, I could feel that detachment. What happened after that was once I detached from that like childhood brainwashing, or not just like the child, I didn't know anything else, was I kind of like completely silenced prayer, like really silenced it out, where there wasn't even like meditation, there wasn't prayer, there was just like nothing. There was like, no, I'm not doing anything spiritual.
Yeah.
But that inner voice was so much anxiety, and there was still so much talk. And like I got into, I remember starting to get into psilocybin and shrooms and LSD. I was smoking weed every day like I do now. But like that, there were things that I started to use medicinally that kind of gave me no other option but to learn of myself more. I don't want to give all the credit to those substances, but like my friends at the time that helped support me, like I started to build a community outside of the like forced way of thinking for so long. And that helped me start to learn all these other areas of prayer outside of the Christian faith, outside of the Northern California Calvary Chapel mindset that I had. And so when I started to become more ritualistic in these things, or like bring back like that neediness to do the same thing every day. Like you pray before every meal, you pray all this. Like once I cancel cultured my prayer life, it was very quick that I was like, felt just so unsafe. Well, also so uncomfortable.
Meals is a big one. Praying before a meal. That was a tough one.
Do you still pray?
No, not
before
anymore.
Meals.
No, but
who do you think?
That was the last one.
But who do you think? Their food's not blessed if you don't thank it. Who do you think?
I thank myself for making it. No, but that was the last. That was the last one.
Thank you, Daddy, for making this food for me.
The last like hiccup in prayer when I on my journey out of Christianity was giving up praying before food because it doesn't feel right eating food for a long time without praying for it.
Was it simple?
No.
So what would?
But when I say recent, I mean like last 2 years. I stopped praying before food in my head.
Last 2 years, yeah. So that's like recent.
Yeah,
that's like
super recent.
That's like during the pandemic.
Yeah. But I mean, it would all be in my head. I wouldn't be like, all right, everyone hold your hands. Let's pray for Jesus. It would just be like, I have some food. Like, thank you God for this food.
No, exactly.
And I start eating.
Well, you've never been somebody that would pray initially.
No.
Like if you prayed out loud, it was because they forced you to.
Yeah.
Zach doesn't pray out loud unless you force him to.
Yeah.
So I think everything we're talking about is that inner voice, right?
Yeah.
It's like that. There's like that inner voice that's been praying, like, thank you for this food. I think that like what I'm trying to get at for me is I recognize that my past experiences with the church over time affected my prayer in a really negative way. I've met atheists. I am an atheist, and some like agnostic, or like I don't even know how I want to define myself in terms wise, but that the power of prayer has been something that if there's one line of spirituality that I've like not lost because of how that's always what it's been, as an inner voice of spiritual thought, is like prayer's just morphed into like, after I went through a phase of really canceling all things spiritual and knowing that like, I don't get a choice. I'm a spiritual being. No matter what we were taught, what we were raised in, I know I'm a spiritual being.
Yeah.
And a lot of people have like connected with me on that too. Like I can't deny it. It's part of the main reasons why I'm a nurse, is like all of that started to make so much more sense when I was able to kind of like not feel guilty. Like if I could just not feel guilty about my past, or like not feel guilty about praying, if I could just pray without being a Christian and not feel guilty about it, then it would just feel so good. And so I've gone through phases of like mantras and different things. And one of the mantras that I found was like a handful of years ago, I came across this book at a thrift store, and I love going thrift store shopping. And so there was like a book on a table, and it just said, I am discourses. So I picked it up, and it was like some book written in the early 1900s, probably like 1930s or 40s. And it was basically like an old, I don't know, some guy came up with it. It's an old handed down religion, that sector of Christianity that's not Christianity. And it was basically like a whole book on taking Jesus's words or God's words from the Bible that were like the I am statements. That was like when Moses asked God, the burning bush, who are you? And the bush goes, burning bush goes,
I am
what I am.
Yeah.
Is like the power of the I am statement was like where I learned that like, oh, there's other like ways, like that's true. Jesus would say that. I don't even believe in like the Bible, but I am is a powerful thing. So I started to like, I was just like, you know what, I'm going to do this. I'm going to do some I am whatever the I am discourse is. So it's saying things like, I am love, I'm life, I am light, I'm good, I'm happy, I'm strong, I'm motivated. And I would do that like every day in the shower, and I would have that stance. And I felt so good finding something that I could do every day for me that was like prayer. It was my mantra, but it wasn't prayer, it was a mantra. And man, did it work. Oh my God, like some really tough times in family court, fighting for Evan, and like just like every day feeling crippling anxiety in those mantras. Like it was almost like it really started to work. And I'd be like, oh my God, you see, there's power in this mysticism of the mantras. So then I like did that for a couple of years and then realized that I'd gotten so addicted to that. Like I was so familiar with the same mantra every day that I was like expecting me to feel happier from it. So when I didn't, I'd be like, it's not working. And the same thing started to feel like, my God, I did this as a kid. I started to treat prayer this way. It was like, if it didn't work, I'd be like, phew. And that's like what helped me learn it was maybe it's not real.
Yeah.
And so not saying all of that hasn't been so powerful, but my process of learning my inner voice has like led me down like all of these journeys of coming out of like a life that was like, an oppressive approach to being born into a family and a religion that told you, if you have thoughts, if you have a thought, like go to God and check to see if God's going to be okay with your thoughts. Like go to God with everything. And God, if you have this for me,
like God being okay with just you thinking,
right?
What an intense just idea that is itself. Is God okay with my thoughts? Is God okay with my thoughts?
Yeah.
That was a big one for me. Is God okay with my thoughts? No, never. I'm human. I'm having the worst thoughts. And because you're trying not to have those thoughts, you're going to have worse thoughts. And then you pray.
Well, and like that prayer that you're talking about for those thoughts, would you pray and like ask God for forgiveness for those thoughts?
Every single one individually.
Really?
That's why like when I talk about like, oh, this OCD, it's not just, oh, I'm guilty for being human. It's I'm guilty for this second thought I had, and then this one, and then this one. And it's just this consistent, it's not anymore.
Yeah.
But when I was a child, it was like just the thoughts were tough to feel so guilty for thinking all the time.
Yeah. I mean, the Bible does tell you that if you look at if you're married, if you're like with a woman, or if you're single, whatever, if you look,
and you look at another woman, you committed adultery.
You committed adultery.
Yeah.
Did it even say if a woman looks at a man?
It doesn't really address women that much.
Right. Okay.
Women are just supposed to submit to the man.
Interesting.
But we're talking about prayer.
Right. But I mean, like a lot of these statements, right? Like if a man looks at a woman, he's committing adultery.
Yeah.
If you hate a man in your heart, you might as well be murdering him.
Yeah.
So I used to think like if a kid at school, like 7th grade, messes up my hair because I'm carrying my Bible with me because I thought I'm doing the Lord's work.
Yeah.
Fighting the good fight, bringing my Bible to school and holding it so people can say.
Yeah.
And some kids would mess up my hair and mess with me and just make fun of me like all of 7th grade. And I used to, oh my God, I'm forgetting where I'm going with this. I was going to say something.
Oh, that you get so angry. It would cause you to be angry.
Oh, that's right. I'd be so angry that the kid that would mess up my hair, he would be looking at me and he'd be like, "What's up, Nathan, the Christian boy?"
Yeah.
And he'd ruin my hair. And in my head,
and you'd have murderous thoughts.
I'd have this thoughts like, "Oh, I hate him. And then right when it would be over, I'd be like,
I just committed murder in my brain.
I would just very calmly, God, I just pray for forgiveness like that. Those thoughts I just had about the guy that ruined my hair. Forgive him for he doesn't know what he does. Forgive him, he doesn't know what he does. And I would like.
Also that right there, savior complex. It's like already being better.
But like the inner voice is like repenting for my inner voice.
Exactly. And it never ends.
God, I'm so sorry for me. If your will be done, I'm so sorry for me.
It's almost like an apology for your existence. That's what it feels like.
Right.
Is you're just consistently apologizing for being human.
To like this whole idea of like be in the world, but not of the world.
Yeah.
You're in the world, but don't be of the world.
Yeah.
Is an oppressive approach to like learning how to have an inner, like you're not meant to have an inner voice in this logic. You know, you're not meant to think for yourself. But the power of prayer can bring people back from the dead.
From the dead.
Oh shit. Okay. God.
Yeah.
You know, it's like, that's intense as a kid. It's like, oh my God, I know it's possible. I remember being with Dad and taking oil and putting it on me. He'd be like, hey, Nathan, take it right here, put it on your head, put it on his head. And I'd be like, but is he having a seizure? And I put it on his head, pray with me. Like that experience stuck with me like crazy.
Yeah.
Like those types of feelings and like experiences.
And being a pastor's kid, you're brought into those experiences that a lot of kids raised in this religion weren't brought into, because you weren't standing there with the pastor doing it. Right. And the pastor, when someone would show up freaking out or whatever on some demons coming out of them, and Dad would pray over them, or they're having a terrible time of anxiety and depression.
Well, that's probably what it is.
Yeah, it's probably more. I was probably
bipolar
a child.
Disorder, schizophrenia,
exactly.
meth, heroin.
But they would do the oil on the forehead, and just the idea of you being there,
anointed with oil,
is powerful.
And what's also really powerful is being able to have conversations about those moments with the power of prayer warrior that is our Father and family. Is, you know, they 100% do not remember things the way that I experienced them. And so, but with that, like jumping to like, to segue off of that thought, like when it comes to prayer specifically and our Father, like, and actually I've learned this from you, like having space to see, you know, Mom and Dad specifically, and like so much of the powers that he had, the influence he had spiritually on us, is there's like the Christian faith, there's like the church, there's all of that. And then there's spirituality. And like, whenever I would go to Dad about prayer, I'd be like, Dad, I don't hear his voice. Am I doing something wrong? You know, like, which is crazy to be going to a parent being like, totally. Am I wrong? Am I doing something wrong? I'm not hearing his voice. And he would be like, no. I think you're missing it, buddy. It's not about a voice. It's not about a real voice.
Yeah.
This is about something in you. This is about you and your life with God. It's a relationship. You have a spirit. You have a Holy Spirit. And he would talk on such a Christian level. But what I was influenced by and what I got was like being able to take all of that spiritual like ingrainment, like foundation, and use it for my benefit when I was ready, when I could have an inner voice.
Yeah.
Like there was so much spirit in me with so many of my friends.
That's a good way.
So many of people that have been hurting. I've been like, I know what to do right now. I know what to feel. I'm not to feel, but you know, like I know how like there's more to us than just like, you know, like, and so I give so much credit to Dad and his like spirituality, because like the power, his spirituality is what's like, I think like helped me accept so much spirituality. Yeah. And in my adult life, having his relationship just to look up to, not maybe what was said or done at times or how much pressure there was. It was just more of having a father that is a pastor, that still is, that is just like, is extremely impactful in a spiritual way. Totally. And so,
and meditative way too.
Yeah. But I don't know. I don't know if you feel that.
Oh no, I totally feel that. And there's a lot of positivity in prayer. Even reflecting on it, with our Father, and it's not all terrible. And it's actually taught me a lot of silence, and a lot of what I take now from, like you brought up, meditation, has come from my experience with prayer and being able to sit silent for such a long period of time. Especially like the prayers before before worship, you would have the pre-prayer and you would sit in silence for such a long time. And even me, with all my social anxieties, there's times where I would pray out loud to everybody. Like you'd stand there for 10 minutes and there'd be silence. I'm like, I'm just going to pray today. I don't know why, but I would. But like those moments, looking back at them now, I just like, it's kind of wild to conceptualize how young I was, and I was surrounded by 50-year-olds, you know, and I'm going to play lead and we're going to pray, but I'm 15, just different. Makes me think of the camps we would go to, and we would have these afterglows, and you'd be standing there with your hands up, worshiping, and just for context reason, afterglow is the worship after all the prayer and after the worship session and after the Bible was read and you had the whole sermon, you would have an afterglow session where like they turn the lights really low, it'd be really dim, you almost like candle lighting everywhere, and you'd have really good worship. Like the good worship team would come back out.
That mood setting would last like
very mood setting.
2 hours, 3 hours.
And it was when God would move people and you would really have like some saving happen. And it was big worship sessions, but
lots of prayer.
As it was dark like that, a couple of youth pastors would walk around and go to the kids and ask them if they need to confess anything, if they'd like prayer. And reflecting back on that, especially today when I was eating my breakfast, I was reflecting on it and just feeling like so vulnerable. Some of the things I told these youth pastors that were 19, 20 at the time. And have no...
yeah, that's weird to think about. They can't even drink.
Yeah. Have no authority.
So you're like at an afterglow, to put some context, because I'm like trying to picture this, and you're praying or you're worshiping, your hands are up. You never did you put your hands up?
Sometimes,
like whatever. And then like a youth pastor would be coming up, checking in like, hey, you know, let's go over to the corner and you want to have a talk?
Well, no, they would just walk through the aisles.
Or
and
whatever.
They'd ask everyone they wanted to pray, and every few kids would be like, yeah, I'll tell you what. Right. Like busting out and tell them vulnerable stuff, and then they pray with them.
Yeah.
And then every time it would get to me, it'd be like, do I tell them something vulnerable?
Would it be
today?
like in front of everybody else?
It was a bit like quiet, like they almost like whisper in your ear.
No, exactly. So they're like putting in context is like you're like worshiping and like, because I have my own experience a lot in this too, but trying to like get yours. And so then you would tell youth pastors, like, so like you're praying or whatever, it's like these moments of prayer and afterglows that are supposed to be about prayer. You're saying were like moments of like you feeling obligated to tell young adult dudes, like,
which at the time I didn't think of confessing. I thought of them as men that are going to lead me and men that are going to teach me. And in reality, none of them had any schooling in therapy. None of them had any schooling to deal with Did
they pray with you?
Yeah.
So that's like, so there's like a connection of like shame, repentance, all around like the bow that comes at the very end, which is prayer. You know what? You've done good today. Let's pray. God, I want to thank you for Zach.
Yeah, exactly.
For being so strong. Wow.
Just you even saying that.
And so
God,
open.
I want to thank you for Zach.
I told you I'm good at it. Okay. I remember I was like all of it. Yeah. I was that. At a very young age, I was the adult.
Yeah.
You know, like that's the role I played. So when youth pastors would come up to me and be like, if you want to confess, I would like confess things or whatever, like you're talking about. But I was also like part of the kid that would like go and be one of them.
Yeah.
I was like the young warrior, really good at it.
You were 12 years old till about 15. I remember you being the young warrior of Christianity.
I remembered, you know, sidetrack here, but I thought, you know, I memorized 1st and 2nd Peter.
I memorized the Romans Road.
What's that?
I don't remember anymore, but I memorized it.
I remember the Romans Road that I don't remember anymore. I remember the dad had like remembered books of the Bible, and I thought that was so cool. So I spent so much time remembering 1st and 2nd Peter, and I could recite the whole thing.
Can you still recite it?
Yeah.
Really?
No.
Okay. I was going to be so impressed.
Dude. Oh my God. I can barely remember the bones of the human body, and I'm a nurse. It's not good, man. My memory's shot. Cannabis has helped with my anxiety because of religious trauma, but Lord knows my short term is gone.
Yeah.
I don't know.
You know.
Do I know?
You know.
Let's segue into something else.
Okay.
About prayer. I'll ask you a question.
Okay.
You're talking about camps and unless you want to keep talking about this like vulnerable place.
No, that was kind of where I went.
Yeah.
I feel like we touched it there.
To like recap that was just basically like in our experience, we went to 3-4 camps a year. We were on the worship team and had prayer sessions before every worship session. Those sessions were hours long at 6 a.m., 7 a.m. And you were the only kid with not just 50, 60, 70-year-olds, pastors, youth pastors. And so a lot of stillness, a lot of experience being in that space, right? of just like being with vulnerable people in vulnerable situations and being really still and quiet and having to decide, am I going to take the spot here? Okay, here it goes. And like, you're kind of expected to know what you're doing because you're a pastor's kid. And I probably made that harder for you because I was always the one that was like, there's been 10 seconds of silence. God, it's my turn. Just like come out.
Well, we were actually very separate all the time. We never, in the youth groups, you were a little older than me. So but separate the kids by age.
You went into the worship team, it's when you started, and I wasn't in the worship team anymore. It's when you kind of took I would think about that. I'd be like, oh, Zach's in the prayer room right now or whatever. Zach's back.
Not praying as much as you were. I can tell you that now.
No, sorry.
I was just as quiet as I have always been.
Yeah. And that's what's incredible with this podcast with you, man, is learning how like, I knew that. We knew we were very different. But look at us now sitting together, like doing this is.
I can tell you right now, throughout my entire life, even 2 years ago, I would have never thought I would have openly told people about my religion and how I was raised and some of the weird stuff that I think back now, and I'm uncomfortable that I did. I'm uncomfortable that my family did, and we're doing it. Yeah. And we're sitting here and we're talking about prayer like this. Yeah. I'm starting to get a lot better at it. Being vulnerable with like, oh no, we did this, and this.
Right.
Let's talk about it. That it's.
Well, I'm proud of you.
And thank you, man. I'm proud of you too. I'm really proud of how vulnerable you've been too as well.
Yeah. I think that that's something you and I are actually really good at. It's like, maybe it's part of the benefit of the prayer. Maybe it's part of the positive, the things that we can look at what we've taken and grown from. Is one thing I know is coming out of the church and all of those things, prayer being the topic we're talking about this week, is I'm not afraid to pray. I'm not I can be triggered. There's one thing, but there's nothing that scares me around the life of prayer and the life of meditation and the life of being still and the life of all that. I know I have a hard time being still.
My thing is, it's not prayer. It's who you're praying to. So if right now I were to be like, help me get through this podcast that we've done for the second time now, I'm having a lot of anxiety. Not that big of a deal. But I said, God, help me. Instantly, I'm like, don't ask God.
Yeah.
Don't ask God.
I think that you also like made it like when I asked you like, well, who do you pray to before you eat? And you're like, myself, the person that made it. And I'm like, that's actually like pretty clutch. Like, thank you, Nathan, for being, motivated enough to make yourself a good dinner and working so hard to have the money you need to get the food, and like also like acknowledging how lucky you are and privileged, right? Like not you, but like in general, like we talk about our privilege so much on this cast. Is like, that's a reason to pray. It's just to be remind yourself in every situation, like I have privilege and I'm lucky. Thank you. Whatever's out there that's gotten me here, like, oh, it's right. It's probably because we're white. Yeah. And males.
100%.
Yeah. So probably don't need to pray about that at all. There's no thoughts and prayers on that one.
Nope.
We're going to go ahead and take a little segue here and check in with our, who, graphic designer who is live in studio.
In the studio.
And was something I guess I didn't mention that you did for us, which is so sweet, was Chantelle Bogue has decided to go live on her TikTok to her 70,000 plus subscribers.
We got one right now. Say
hi. Hi, babe. Hi, Katie.
Hi.
What's up, Katie?
Thanks for being here.
Thanks for being here, Katie.
If you want to check this podcast out, it'll be out in 2 weeks. So we're name shouting Katie right now.
Yeah, Katie.
Thanks for being here.
Thanks for being here, Katie.
Thanks for being here, Katie. Katie. I got something for you.
Okay.
Not too long ago, very recently, there was that football player that collapsed.
Yeah.
He's like
20 Hamlin.
23 years old. Which interesting, all of us cardiac surgical nurses figured out what had happened to him because we were like trying to figure out, and it's very rare
that a 20.
But what had happened is it's a phenomenon where right when your heart beats, like the contracts and the electrical impulses contract, cause contraction, if your chest has like impact really hard, it can cause like trauma force to that electrical impulse and stop the heart. Cause you to go into like cardiac arrest.
Yeah.
So what had happened was right when his chest got hit by the other person, it was just like, boom, right when his heart was like, dum, dum, dum. He's like, because it just like knocked his heart out, basically. Supposedly. But there's a name for that. I just can't remember.
What's wild is they couldn't get it back. His heart was stopped for a good amount.
Well, that's what happens when you go into cardiac arrest, right? Yeah. Cardiac arrest is when your heart stops beating. You have no pulse, no oxygen going to the brain. So the only thing pumping is the person doing CPR. So that's why you don't ever stop doing CPR. That's like, you don't ever stop because that blood's going to and from the heart and the brain. I'm getting lost on the nurse life here. Don't let me do that, man. But my question I was going to ask, or just like kind of bring up, was, because I had a visceral reaction to this, was whenever I see stuff like this is, the picture on Reddit, I'm scrolling Reddit or whatever, and here it comes, is it's like the headline is like, New York Bill or whatever it was, NFL football team, whole team in prayer on the field as ambulance leaves. And it shows the ambulance driving out and the entire football team is on their knees in a circle. And it's just like a powerful picture and image. And it's like the power of prayer for someone's heart that stopped. Same thing that Jesus used to bring Lazarus from the dead.
Yeah.
So you have this huge group of people, and that's what I think. Now that's what Jesus did and bring Lazarus. That's crazy. And that's my thought.
And your reaction is visceral.
It's like power.
Power?
Like more like power. What are these people like? That's like my first feeling, and I feel guilty. Like, no, I should not be feeling like. Then guilt starts. So whether it's my own personal thing with prayer, but like, or in society and culture now, where there's power of prayer in this country, the Christian faith is, like built within our culture here. That I was just like, when you see stuff like that, or even that as an example, like a whole team in prayer on an NFL field, and it's positive, right? I don't know. Like, what's your reaction?
I mean, it is positive. That's the tough thing is it's almost like a sign of respect. That's what I see now. It still now causes me a lot of anxiety when I see other people praying, because I'm like, you don't go to church. I can look up your Twitters right now. You're terrible people if you're going to call yourself a Christian. That's where my Christian self kicks in. And I'm like, yeah, I'm judged. You can't pray if you're bad, And it's like, no, that's not. It is. There's positivity to it. It all depends how you see it. But no, I am visceral. My reaction is visceral when I see those types of things. And I question myself every single time, because who am I to judge other people for what they do? And also, prayer is not a bad thing. It's not hurting anybody for the most part. I mean, we can say how it's hurt us from our upbringing, but in reality, other people praying is quite positive and meditative.
Yeah, you're right. And like, you saying that makes me think about something I always talk about with my therapist, like something that just comes up. And there's that term again, right? Or that statement, like, me and my therapist. Yeah. But it's so good to have like
that's good. That means it's working. It means powerful.
Oh, it's also year 3, baby. Yeah. Year 3, every week, every other week.
Is that the secret? Year 3 is when it starts to happen.
Longevity, right? Imagine doing this podcast for 3 years.
Yeah, it's true.
Year 3, you're getting it. So is the fan.
Yeah, I know.
The fan's like, we're both getting it.
Yeah, we all get it.
This social relationship's really happening.
Yeah.
I can feel you. I dream about those boys. Where was I at?
Your therapist.
Shit.
Your therapist.
My therapist. Oh yeah. Is that positive, and this is so cliche, positive thinking is extremely contagious.
Yep.
Just like negative thinking is extremely contagious.
Yep.
And big shout out, Andrew Santino's podcast is on Netflix. Part of his special,
not his podcast, his
his special
stand-up
special was on Netflix. Part of his special, he talked about this one joke, and I don't want to give it away if you want to go watch it, but he talks about like just like his feelings of how when a fan wants to like talk to him or something, and or I'll just say it, like there's like the person that's in the tool shop or whatever that wants to pet his dog, and his first thought is, I don't want to talk to somebody right now, and he's like, but he's learning that like, nope, don't be an asshole. Don't be like,
follow happiness.
Follow happiness. Yeah. And it's like that feeling of like, like just the simplest things feel so uncomfortable. You're just like, ugh, I just don't want to do this. Like, I just want to get in and get out. Like, what made me think about that was like how familiar, like that's such a familiar place that I feel a lot is like, I don't act on it ever. I always fake it till I make it, right? Like in every situation, you might not ever really know because I'm just like, I have so much guilt. Like, no, I should not be this way, but I play that in my head. And I've like, think that like that space is around like positive thinking leads to positive thinking, which leads to positive living, which leads to a positive life. And that just feels so like cliche, but
it's true.
It's totally
contagious.
True.
It's
totally
super
true.
I mean, I try to like, if I'm having a good day, and I say that because when I'm having a bad day, it's tough to do anything. But when I am having a bad day and I just force myself to be positive, where it's like, I can't really think of an example at the moment, but like that type of situation where I'm just going to be social. I'm just going to force myself there. I'm going to talk to them. I'm going to act interested. I'm instantly better. I feel more positive. The day gets increasingly better by like exponentially, just like that first barrier being broken of giving in. And I think there's a lot said there. I remember when he was telling that joke on that special, I was like, that's so me. That thought,
it's a great joke because it's so relatable.
Yeah.
And I think that talk about good storytelling is it's about being able to share part of yourself that probably a lot of us deal with.
Yeah.
Humans are very unique people with a lot of unique, like we're unique people in a world full of unique people, but there's probably a lot of relatability.
Yeah.
And that there is a sense of like privilege that comes with that. Like we know we're privileged if it's like, I don't want to talk to that person. It's like, you're supposed to be pretty like well off to not need anybody.
Yeah.
You know, like if you can just go to a store and never need to talk to people, that's pretty like before you always needed each other to like survive.
Yeah.
Right. And so that's probably still the case. But I think to connect what we're getting at is you were saying that when I see people praying or whatever, they can be triggers. And that there are triggers for you and what you were saying, but that you choose to see the positivity that is people coming together for the same hopes and desires. So like this football player who just hits the ground, he's young, gets taken off. So the entire NFL team gets on their knees. You look at that and you're like,
well, I mean,
this is positive.
No, I mean, I try to tell myself that.
Like people coming together is positive though.
Yeah,
like I agree. Exactly. I think that's so good.
Yeah.
Like if there's anything that can bring humans together,
it's positive.
It's positive. And all collectively thinking, like, I know not saying that like cults or anything. I'm just talking about like collectively thinking. So like is, for the hope and desire of this person to heal.
Exactly.
Is a powerful and positive thing. Just like as if that same exact NFL team got on their knees and they were like, die. People would be like, what the what is going on? It'd be so powerful. You're like, this is evil.
Yeah.
But so I choose to see that too. And I don't want to get like sidetracked. Like we're going to talk about worship and one of our like music and worship and all that. But like there is something that just comes with being in a group of people that are collectively doing the same thing, focused around the same thing. There's something
it's powerful,
very powerful about that.
Whoever wants to define what it is, it doesn't really matter. We just know it's powerful.
Yeah.
People together. Why going to a 50,000 person auditorium at a show is such an experience because there's 50,000 people there, even just 1,000 people, 100 people at a show. There's people there all experiencing the same thing, all engaging.
Yeah.
It's powerful.
And there's something to be defined here. I think the word defining is that like mine and your experience is always going to be ours on this podcast. We're going to try our best to be real about that and honest and vulnerable. And that's unique to us.
Yeah.
But that in this is like personal prayer and that inner voice is different than group prayer and the power of like being in a group and collectively like meditatively doing that. And those experiences for me were like meshed. They were combined. It'd be like praying by myself in the morning before I like got out of bed to like group prayer at church to like group prayer in the youth group, different styles. And so like, yeah, a lot of it is very triggering for me. Like if I'm being honest, like looking at all of my life and all of the spirituality I have and grown through and chosen to really believe in and build an identity over the years is like, I guess the closest thing we have to prayer a lot is with our family, you know, every dinner, wherever we are with them, they, you know, prayer is always that. And so there's never not like a opportunity to feel those triggers, if that makes sense. And like hold that and like, I got to work on this. Like my mom and dad ain't changing. People in our lives are going to be praying all around us. And I don't want to have a bad relationship with prayer because I don't want to feel guilty every time someone prays around me. And I think what you said is pretty powerful because that's how, you know, like that trigger, what is that, you know, how does that look? And you explained how yours looks. And it's like, I would like to have a more healthy and positive relationship with prayer. I just don't know if that's even possible. Like not having a God to pray, right? Like there's no God to pray to. There's no right or wrong. There's no gender. There's none of these things that we were forced to, like we were praying about all the time. Like, God, I just really want to date this girl. Like and there's so much hierarchy and gender hierarchy and thought. And so like just to build an identity outside of what we were raised in or how I was thinking was like, man, I got to figure out how to just think for myself.
It's almost like you got to figure out how to pray now. Whatever that is for you.
I guess you're right. That's a really good point.
You were trained how to pray to God. And now you have to learn how to pray for yourself because there isn't a God to pray to.
Do you do anything right now in your life that's like mantras on a daily basis, prayer, or not prayer, but like
I do mantras. But I don't think of that technically as replacing prayer. It's just talking to myself out loud. I am content. I am happy.
Oh my God. You know what I just thought? Talking to myself lately.
I've been talking to myself lately. Asking for some help lately. I'm praying to God. I don't remember that line. That song though, dude.
That song is about this.
Oh, 100%. That's 100%.
I'm praying to God, helping he could.
I'm praying to God, hoping he can help maybe.
Hoping these odds.
I wish I could read it because it's such. That's one of my most favorite, like,
but that was
most
our
poetic songs.
And it's also the only
track you've ever actually been on for science.
It was funny is whenever, and you and I had like such a connection to that track. And I remember that line when you wrote it, I was like thinking like praying to God, hoping he can help maybe. It's like that line is actually like, no, I had been going to God, still praying. And like knowing what I was doing wasn't what I like, it was like that same cycle. You know, it's like, I know what I'm doing is a maybe though.
Yeah.
Maybe though you're still there. Like that's something that we're cursed with.
Yeah.
You know, it's like the lingering echo chamber that goes on for so many years of, there's always that like not too far from home, like maybe though. Yeah. So that line's powerful. It's like being honest about that is like huge, you know, and that like how much it lingers to how long it can take coming out of how we were raised in the church to build an identity that is separate from prayer is freaking hard.
Yeah.
But worth it.
Totally. I wouldn't change my life for anything. I love who I am, dude. And all my faults and everything that come with it. Should we go to the game cam?
Love that. That was hot. Yeah, let's go to that.
Yeah.
Let's go on over to the
game cam.
Game cam.
Game cam.
So not trying to bring up the elephant in the room again, but this is the second time we played this game tonight. And I will say right now that we're on this cast,
I did win the last
Zach
one.
did win the
And it was a very intense game.
Very intense.
So it might not be the same as intensity. I think it's going to be just as intense, if not worse, now that I know how to smash it.
I feel more intense.
Spider on yours.
Yeah, that's my friend. He's praying for me. Or she.
We are playing Foosball 2.0. And by the way, the song you're hearing in the...
Go for it. Tell him.
No, go for it.
The song that you're hearing right now is more than likely probably one of those new Nay game tracks.
Probably one of those new Nay game tracks, everybody.
But hey, this is good, right? I mean, you had mentioned to me that come like episode, what was it?
It's like episode 27, you'll have the 20 that you've wanted.
I'll have 20 tracks
and then we can start
wanted.
working on the album.
Start working out. And I was thinking about with 20 tracks, we could do 2 Those Boys Game Track Volume 1 and Volume 2
albums.
and do 10. That means we could release one now and have one to release later and then have enough to like keep.
And during that time of releasing, make new music, and we could just do it yearly. 2 albums.
The other thing that I was really wanting to do is when we release that game track is like anything that's not worthy of being a game track that should be a track. Like with, I don't know, you, me, and Jim.
Yeah. Ooh.
We should do that.
Jimbo.
Yeah.
I'd love to work with Jim again. His voice is
I think the three of us are going to do
edit.
something, man. It's going to be hot.
I know. I can feel it. I feel the energy. All right. Foosball 2.0.
Foosball 2.0. Remember, the rules for this game are you take your puck pieces here, you fling them back on the string, you let go, boom, into the hole. The first one to get all of their pieces to the other side wins. The thing is as the player's Zach's pieces come over, I can take his piece and I can do one piece at a time where I try to get it back. So you can do black and white but one at a time. Okay. Here we
hands
go.
Off the board.
Originally we did best out of 3 games, but if this game lasts a very long time,
it depends. The first game I slaughtered him, and so we had to do best out of 3.
You're going down, Zachary.
You're going down, big guy.
You're
going down, big guy.
You ready?
I'm ready.
Eye contact. Pray.
Buddy.
Pray.
I've prayed.
I've prayed.
That's mocking prayer.
Yeah.
Is it?
I don't care.
3,
2,
1,
go.
No. You see, you're playing very good already. Come on, baby. So right now, we're hitting with the pucks. If you're listening, we're hitting pucks to strings. Pucks are going to the string, trying to go through the hole. They're trying to go through the hole. Zach's very good at this game. He's getting into the routine. Nathan's trying to be on the mic at the same time as playing. You see?
You're going to use the mic as your excuse why you're going to lose. You're like, I was trying to keep the mic going. That's why I lost. I was focusing on the podcast, Zach.
Come on, baby, get through.
Yes,
buddy.
It's really hard once you get in.
Yes, I know. Once you start losing quick.
I'm getting angry because this is hard, and you should not be beating me.
That's not true. I should definitely be beating you. But you did. The first time we had this on the podcast, you did beat me, and you did your big distortion scream, and it's one of my favorite.
We're not doing that though anymore.
I know, because
Uncle Mark told us.
Our uncle was like, guys, I'm listening to the podcast. I'm listening to it. I'll be in my garden, and then you just start screaming. Can you just stop with the screaming?
Can you stop with the screaming?
I was like, you know what? Thanks for saying that, because we're gonna stop with the screaming now.
I like a little clip.
Are we going best 2 out of 3?
We're gonna switch the board around as we did because we all know that you're a cheater.
Right.
Okay, I actually gotta get more serious here because you always have like a better.
I do have a little better of an angle. I'll give you that.
3, 2, 1.
It's not looking good for you, Nate.
God, dude, chill, bro.
That was yours.
Bro, chill.
Game.
Buddy.
Oh, snap, dude.
You know what I hate, man,
So
is
sorry.
that I just
tell me what you hate.
the second match of the last game at least showed that we had like a 10-minute match.
I know, it's miserable. But that was quick. Sorry, dude. Sorry. At least I quick. No.
It's depressing to lose that bad.
You should pray about it.
It's so brutal. I have been this whole time.
Buddy.
That was good though. That was a good game.
I mean,
I mean, at least it wasn't like you beat me and then I could be like, well, I won the first time.
Foosball 2.0
Yeah.
goes to Signs.
Here to win.
Snackery.
I'm here to win.
You know what we're supposed to do?
Huh.
That's always when I stop the music.
Yeah.
When we do a little knuckle.
Little knucks.
Good game.
Good game, dude. Good cast.
Yeah, and thanks for not reacting.
Oh, after the last one. Thanks for us both not reacting. I think we handled that very well.
And I like, it's really nice to be able to say this. Thanks again to our beautiful, smart, intelligent, wise, and pretty damn cutthroat, won't give us any slack, Chantelle Bogue. She said, you're going to go again. So we went again and we wouldn't without you. So it's nice to have support. Thank you so much.
Yes.
We love you. All right. Love you, man.
Love you, dude.
See you next week.
See you next week.
Over and out.
Over and out.
Peace out.
Peace out.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.